And we're live and on the air. This is the TWIS Minion Science Island Hangout. I'm Ed Dyer from Connecticut. As you can see, I'm lightly dressed because it's warm in the 80s for us, just entering summer. And joining me is Pamela Taylor, and as you may hear, her beautiful bouncing child, Chelsea. Hopefully, Chelsea won't be too much of a problem. You know, pulling the earphones and things out of Pamela, so she'll be able to participate. And the interesting thing is, we were just talking, and I'm talking about summer here being in the 80s, which is around 26, 27 Celsius. And where Pamela is, they're going into winter, and they're in the 80s. It's, 26, 27 Celsius. So it's slightly different environment. We also have in the chat room, we've got Mike Jobin, Wiz Mike, and we've got Jay. So hi, guys. I will keep monitoring what's happening in the chat area in case there's anything you guys want to say. Stories. We got bunches of science stories tonight. We've got a couple dealing really with regenerative medicine. One dealing with the researchers have identified a specific bacteria that with mice helps change behavioral disorder. And in the mice, they say it's autistic-like behavior. So the hope is that if this can be if this can work with humans, then maybe it can help them address people with autistic or autistic-like behavioral problems. Another interesting one, there's actually a branch called musicology. You can go to college and get a musicology degree. Did not know that. And there are people who practice musical therapy. And in this particular case, we're talking about the research reveals that pain and pleasure of sad music. You can play sad music and people enjoy it. I don't know. In any event, the big wow story for me is how through uterus transplants, and this is very new, only a couple of women have had this, but there's one clinic where they've had, I think, 4 or 5 transplants, uterus transplants, and the woman receiving the transplant has given birth to a child. And they believe that this could also work with a transgender woman. A man who has transitions to a woman might be also able to receive this uterus transplant, may be able to carry a baby to term. The birth would have to be cesarean. So that's amazing. Continuing saga of the effects of antibiotic treatments on the infant gut microbiome, and a couple of other things. But I want to get into the first story here. This is amazing. We're completely rewriting. One, not only choosing a sexual identity, but transitioning and then being able to function. Let's say a man transitioning to a woman, being able to become pregnant and having a child. I want to go to the screen share just so you don't have to look at my bald head. All right. Don't know if there's any pictures here. Okay, here's a picture to look at. In any event, the guy who's doing this research, his name is Mats Brännström, and he performs uterus transplant. He began with rodents, female rodents. He moved on to sheep, baboons, and then 2 years ago, he performed this particular transplant surgery with a woman, and the patient was able to deliver her own baby. And with other patients he's been dealing with, they have 4 more babies, hopefully will follow. His feat had an unintended effect, igniting hopes that some trans women may one day be able to carry their own children. You have another researcher, Cecil Ungar, specialist in female pelvic medicine at Cleveland Clinic. And she said 40 of her female transgender patients all are talking about they want this uterine transplant. Let's see. The organ must be quickly implanted, and must function correctly, ultimately producing menstruation in its recipients as well. If the patient does not have further complications, and this is the one they've performed so far, then a year later the doctor may implant an embryo via in vitro fertilization. The resulting baby will have to be born through cesarean section. Safety precaution to limit stress on the transplanted organ. Because the patient cannot feel labor contractions. Following the transplant and throughout pregnancy, the patient has to take anti-rejection drugs. So you've got risks of possible side effects. Now here's what they say. The dynamic process of pregnancy also requires much more than simply having a womb to host a fetus. So the hurdles would even be greater for a trans woman. To support a fetus through pregnancy, a transgender recipient would also have to need hormone treatments as well. And something, they say vast cultures to feed the uterus, along with a vagina. Here's how the process could work. The patient would like, and this is one of the things about transgenders is, and there's, in the United States, you have a group of people, they look on this, a transgender person is kind of a freak, it's not natural, etc. But if they knew the process that a transgender person goes through, it's really a long, lengthy process, particularly if you have surgery involved, there's a lot of pain involved. This is a process you don't choose to go through. You don't say, I want to go through it. It's got to be something you feel you need to go through that process. And so it's you really need a greater understanding of all the things that a transgender person has to decide to go through to know that this is a procedure they really want. They really need that gender identity of being a man or being a woman. It's their correct gender identity. And here's how it would work. A patient would likely need castration surgery and high doses of estrogen hormones because high levels of male sex hormones, the androgens, could threaten pregnancy. The patient could also need surgery to create what they say is a neovagina. That would be connected to the transplanted uterus and would shed meons, M-E-N-S-E-S, which would be, that's the menstruation process, and give doctors access to the uterus for follow-up care. A small number of surgeons already have experienced creating artificial vaginas and connecting them to utria patients. Most of this guy Brandstrom's transplants to date there's no hard answers about whether such a fantastic sounding process would actually, how well it would work. Okay, jumped ahead a little bit. The operation has not been done, the operation has not been explored in animal trials, let alone humans. Yet with 6 planned uterine transplant clinical trials among natal female patients across the US and Europe, reproductive researchers are hoping that they will be able to become more comfortable with this type of surgery. So this is not just transplanting a uterus, it's also going this connective process to the vagina. So you have the uterus, so now you've got to connect this this vagina that you've created to the uterus itself. The surgery is still very experimental. Just over a dozen uterus transplants have been performed so far with mixed results. One day, the first U.S. attempt, for instance, a 26-year-old Cleveland Clinic patient had to have transplanted organ removed after complications. In the Benstrom group, the procedures have led to babies. The trouble is that uterine, and I'm probably mispronouncing that word, transplants are extremely complex, resource-intensive, requiring dozens of health professionals and color coordination. First, the uterus and then its accompanying veins and arteries must be removed from a donor, either living or patients. I seem to be missing a few letters here. Excuse me. Either a living or perhaps a dead donor. The patients they've worked with also have a condition called Ryo-Tecnican-Say something or other syndrome. As a result, they lack the upper part of the vagina and have to have a neo-vagina surgically made. Separately, surgeons that specialize in working with trans women also have to create neovaginas after castration using skin from the penis and the scrotum. Even if the hormonal and anatomical challenges are overcome, for someone who has been producing sperm instead of eggs, there could be one additional hurdle. Before castration, the person's sperm must be collected and combined with a donor or partner's egg to make the embryo in vitro fertilization. So this would be that person's own child. And the embryo would have to be frozen until the transplant patient is ready. If the embryo is successfully implanted, the trans woman would then naturally produce the placenta required to sustain the pregnancy and begin to lactate in preparation for breastfeeding. Many transgender patients have also been saving for years. We're talking about $24,000 without medical insurance just for the regular male to female genital surgery. Obviously, this procedure we're talking about would cost a great deal more. So, wow. Let me get out of the screen share. What do you think, Pamela?
Yeah, well, yeah. Well, I mean, people don't do it for no reason. They do it because they're trapped in the wrong body. So it's obviously worth it to them. And yeah, there's no better feeling in the world than carrying your own child. And so this isn't, I mean, the focus has been on transgender women, but there's tons of people born women who can't have children for many reasons. So this would be great for them too.
It's the amazing part to me is if the surgery is correct, you've got the uterus, then you create the neovagina, you connect the two. This trans woman would then be able to menstruate. She'd have to save her eggs. The eggs could be used to fertilize, the male recipient, implanted into her uterus. A placenta is created. The baby gets nourished. It sounds really like a reasonably normal process.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, you were saying that, they have to be delivered by cesarean section. Well, I was born a woman and I have to deliver by cesarean section too, because after a 48-hour labor, we found that my cervix just doesn't work. And you don't know that something's not going to work until you use it. So, yeah, I mean, that's not exclusive to transgender women.
Yeah,
they've all right, didn't you?
if you're a woman trapped in a man's body, you're now a woman, and now at some point in the future, you can really feel like a complete woman. Now, going through the birth process, in this particular case, I don't know that the woman would be able to feel actual contractions. That I don't know. That I'm not sure about.
Yeah, because the uterus would be, if the uterus can do everything else, then you should be able to feel contractions. But no, but if you're going to have a cesarean, you'd be booked in for that before you even went into labor.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, I didn't expect to have a cesarean, you know, but if there was next time, which there probably won't be, but if there was next time, yeah, yeah, I'd be booked in like Monday 9 a.m. kind of thing. I wouldn't go through labor again. So if you can have a period, you can have contractions, because that's what a period is. You're having miniature contractions to get rid of the uterus lining. So yeah, if you can have a period, you can have contractions. But if you don't have a vaginal canal, then you've got to have a cesarean section. So
that's absolutely amazing.
yeah. So no, she would definitely be able to feel contractions. But why would you if you don't have to?
That's my question. You know, if you don't have to, but I don't.
I did.
I mean, I can't relate to the whole birthing process. Women obviously.
There are some women who say, yeah, there are some women who say it's a pleasant experience. No, man, no, nothing prepared me for that pain. And the drugs didn't even work because I waited until it was too late to make them work, because I was trying to do it all natural and that. Yeah, power to your sister if you can do it. I can't. I felt like I was being tortured. But yeah, nothing prepared me for that pain. Why would you do it if you don't have to?
I wonder if they could have a simulation of some sort. You want to get pregnant, you want to deliver the baby the old-fashioned way. Here's this little test, VR thing. I don't know what the heck it is, and you just sample a little contraction pains. Then maybe you might decide, I don't know, maybe I want to try something different. A little test tube baby, maybe.
You know, like if I think that it wasn't videoed, but if I should have videoed my 48 hours of labor and then sold it like to high schools to use in education. They would never those kids would not have sex for like 20 years. Because the nurses said when I was leaving, they said, "Oh, we'll be talking about your birth experience for a long time." And I'm like, "Great."
You know, with the guy, you have the guy and the man and the woman. They go through this, what do you call them, classes and things. Wouldn't it be neat?
We went to those.
If the guy also has to go through, you know, the contraction experience somehow, the little implants planted on their arms so they can feel how wonderful it is to feel contractions.
No, well, Chelsea's father had a kidney stone. He's had them twice now, one when he was 26 and one at 42, and that has been compared to labor. So even though I was screaming in agony, he was saying, "Oh well, you know, I've been through that with my kidney stone." So, and apparently that's true. Yeah.
Yeah, but I've had a kidney stone, and that's like, you know, five seconds, it's gone. It's painful. Well, actually, no. It gets stuck in.
He had to have surgery. His was bad.
Holy mackerel!
They just about had. Yeah.
Okay.
They just about had to cut him in half to get rid of him.
Oh my God.
But I didn't consider it a compliment. But anyway, yeah, no, yeah. I should have videoed the 48 hours because I was vomiting and yeah, it was shocking.
That sounds like so much fun.
I played it to high school. oh, look, I'd do it 1,000 times again, literally, if I had to, for the same result, because she's just healthy and she's just easy. Yeah. Um, I've got friends, who've got kids with allergies and they can't have this and they can't have that and they can't go here and they can't go there. And I'm like, oh man, I've got it really easy. And she breastfed like that, and everyone said, how did you get her to do that? And I'm like, I didn't do anything. I just lifted her up and she did it. So everything since giving birth has been really easy. The labor was really easy. So, a couple of days of absolute pain and torture is worth it.
I've been reading
I think it should be
about the Civil War area in the United States back in the 1870s, let's say 60s, where women that was their job. And there were women who would have 10, 12, 13 kids. So that's 10, 12, 13 times going through labor.
No, I know, but even if that's the thing, if you went through labor 10, 12, 13 times, you still wouldn't do 48 hours normally. Like, I've got a cousin that gave birth 3 months after me, and she barely made it into the hospital. He fell out of her. Her whole labor was an hour and a half. So yeah, 48 hours of labor is way more than anyone who has a dozen kids would experience. So the doctor said, oh, you could try and again, but I wouldn't. I'm like, yeah, no, I wouldn't either. If I have another kid, it'd just be a C-section. Thank you.
Got another story here. They're talking about infants, and I don't know, has Chelsea needed or any antibacteria treatments of any kind?
She's never been sick.
Wow,
No,
that's
she's
good.
She's never even had a cold. Yeah, she's nothing.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
She's got a great gut microbiome.
Yeah.
I
had a head cold the other week, but she is fine.
That's great. That's amazing. I haven't had a cold in years since I retired. But that's because I don't, I'm not around people that much anymore.
Well, because when I have my exams, that's the only time she has to go to daycare. And every single time she goes to daycare, I get sick because the kids are sick, and she doesn't. She never gets sick ever, but I get it.
So she passes on the germs to you.
Yeah, she passes it on, but she doesn't have it herself. All right. Well,
you use the bus, and you're with Chelsea on the bus, so she's being exposed to germs and things. So
she's around people all the time. No, she just doesn't. Yeah, we got sneezed on in an elevator in Sri Lanka, and I thought, oh, here we go. And because they don't cover their noses, so it was just like a big wet. But no, she just nothing. She doesn't get sick, so.
She must have an amazing microbiome. You know what you should do? You should, I don't know if you could patent it. Yeah, you ever heard of the poop pill idea? And I think Justin talked about it. Yeah. Well, Chelsea's poop pill has got to be fantastic. You said, here, this child's never been sick. Use Chelsea's poop pills. That would be right on the label. Chelsea's poop pills. The new miracle cure.
Yeah. Yeah. No, but it was just the labor that was horrible. Everything else has been really easy, so we're really fortunate. I've got a friend who's 4-year-old or 3-year-old or something. He has 26 things that he can go into anaphylactic shock over. So he carries his EpiPen. He understands how it works. He knows what he's allergic to. But like, damn, he just about needs to live in a bubble. And that would be a level of stress that thankfully I don't have to worry about. Can I have my phone, please? Who are you calling? You've been making some international calls lately. Yeah.
I'll mute myself because you couldn't hear me. Ulysses, our friend Ulysses is in the chat room.
Oh, come on camera, Ulysses.
And I'm going to send him a link. Got to send Ulysses a link so we can get him into the chat area. if you will come
What's
in.
he saying in chat?
He's just saying good morning, everyone, because it's technically morning here. All right. Okay, I'm going to go on to the next story. And this one is about the gut microbiome, the impact of antibiotics on the gut microbiome. Man, I'm having a tough night here. I don't speak the words too good tonight. Let me do the screen share so you don't have to look at my bald head. Okay, there you go. The impact of antibiotic treatment on infant gut microbiome. And excuse me. This is Massachusetts General Hospital. They have a comprehensive analysis in the intestinal microbial population during the first 3 years of life has revealed some impacts of factors such as mode of birth and antibiotic exposure and the impact these have. One of the key motivations of microbiome research is that the microbial population of early childhood appears to be crucial to human health. And the decreased diversity, here's the key, decreased diversity of the gut microbiome has been implicated in a number of allergic and autoimmune diseases. Not only did our study analyze the gut microbiome at a high resolution, it allowed us to identify both microbial species and strains, but by following their studies, participants over time, they were also able to uncover findings about what a single sample can do. Okay, 39 children were in the study, and they took stool samples during the month, and they were taken after birth and continuing until 36 months. Each sample was analyzed in a standard RNA-based sequencing procedure is used to identify microbial populations, and more detailed whole genome sequencing was conducted on 25% of the samples. Okay, during the study, 20 of the participants received antibiotic treatment for respiratory or ear infections, and with those children, they received between 9 and 15 of these antibiotic treatments. Children who have been exposed to antibiotic treatment had a reduction in the diversity of the microbial population, a difference that was even greater in a group that had something called low bacteroides signature. Whole gene sequencing also found that in antibiotic-exposed children, bacteria species tended to be fewer and dominated by one strain instead of several species and strains in the strains seen with those that had not been treated with antibiotics. The analysis of many samples taken over time revealed that microbiomes of antibiotically exposed children were less stable, particularly around the time of the treatment. The presence of genes known to confer antibiotic resistance rose during the antibiotic treatments. Levels of resistance to genes encoded on microbial chromosomes dropped quickly after treatment was discontinued. The kind of high-resolution sequencing done in the study should help to lead to a better understanding of having a healthy gut microbiome. And go ahead.
Well, antibiotics are the thing. I don't think a lot of people realize that it kills everything, good or bad. It doesn't distinguish. So it doesn't just kill the bad guys; it kills the good guys too. Yeah. Anyway, so I just don't think a lot of people realize that. Anyway.
Yeah, that, I mean, older men like me have a tendency, or we have a greater tendency of getting urinary tract infections. And I've had one, and I received antibiotic treatments. And yes, you can notice the difference right afterwards. But it only works basically one time. That's the other problem. Because what's happened is you haven't killed all of the bacteria. And the bacteria that have survived are superbacteria. So the next time, the antibiotic's not going to do you any good. So it's something you really got to be careful. And we have antibacteria everything. There's been a tremendous increase, it seems, in the kind of ailments that require antibiotic treatment. And that, as you say, it affects the microbiome, and you're killing off a lot of that biome. You no longer have the diversity in everything. You need diversity in everything. Our friend Ulysses, he is now a master electrician at a local hospital. He's working in a local hospital. He can probably tell us about all kinds of antibacteria. Ulysses, he's eating goat yogurt.
Why isn't he on? Tell me what.
I don't know.
You can
Come on, Ulysses.
yogurt on camera.
I sent you the link.
Yeah. Yeah. I had, it's funny, well, it's not funny. When I was 30 weeks pregnant, my appendix started playing up, and I had to have antibiotics then, and they said they might have to take my appendix out. We'll see how we go, if it ruptured, of course, which would have meant taking her out early at the same time, because they can't take my appendix out and leave baby. So I chose to have a course of antibiotics and leave her in, and hope that worked, and leave her in there longer. And I had doctors even saying to me, "Oh, she's going to come out with yellow teeth, and it's going to mess, with all her immune system, and you're probably just better off having a Caesar at 30 weeks." And I said, I just went with my instincts, and I went, no, it'll be right. And so I had the antibiotics. The appendix settled down, and it's nearly 2.5 years on, and my appendix hasn't done anything since, so it's all good. And she has perfectly white teeth, so doctors don't know everything either. Yeah, and obviously her immune system is perfect because she doesn't get sick.
No. That's good. I think with the treatment being worse than the cure in some cases. You see that all the time, and you want to come up with treatments for ailments that are not going to have the side effects.
No, I mean, they were just going with the worst case scenario. You don't want your appendix rupturing when you're pregnant, but if you and they're like, the baby's fine after 26 weeks, you can take him out, it'll be fine. And I was like, yeah, that's great. No, I'm going to go with my instincts and say, let's try a course of antibiotics first and see if that settles my appendix down before we go slicing me open. And as it happened, I had to have a cesarean anyway, but I had a cesarean at 40 weeks. Everything, she was right on time, so.
Well, does pregnancy have an impact on the mother's health? She's now feeding two. You're nourishing a child as well as yourself. And I know there are all kinds of medical problems that pregnant women can have. So does having the child itself fitting, in your uterus, does that impact a mother's health? Her immune system.
Because they're taking all the nutrition. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, she would have been sucking all the calcium out of my bones. And because I'm over 30, I can't replace it. So whatever calcium you have in your bone up until 30, that's it. That's what you got for life. They can only deplete. Whereas if you have children earlier on, you can build it back up again before you hit 30. So yeah, definitely messes with your health, but in good ways as well. You know, certain types of cancers, my statistically, I shouldn't get now because I've had a kid, because it's a healthy thing to do. You know, we've seen studies where they go into your brain and fix things. I don't know about that though. I feel like my brain is definitely different, and I feel like I'm only just starting to get it back now properly. And I feel like I've been in quite a fog because I've been breastfeeding this whole time, so she's been taking it all from me. But now I'm starting to wean her. I feel like I'm getting my brain back. So yeah, no, definitely good and bad things for your the mother's health. Big impact. The appendicitis thing. Who knows if that would have happened if I wasn't pregnant? You just don't know, because you can't clone me and have one pregnant and one non-pregnant and see what the appendix does. So was that a reaction to being pregnant, or would it have happened anyway? Who knows? And if it had happened and I wasn't pregnant, then I would have probably had the appendix removed because there was no risk to anyone else. No, you can't have my phone because you keep making phone calls.
Ulysses doesn't have his camera up, but he made an interesting statement here. I think he's kidding. I'm going to get a certain kind of cancer because I'm over 30 and have not had a child.
I didn't say over 30. No, but statistically it's true. You have a lesser chance of having breast cancer, ovarian cancer, all that if you have children as a woman.
Mm-hmm. That is good. All right.
And why, they don't know, but that's the statistics. You can look it up.
All right. Well, you're obviously your system is changing. You're breastfeeding, as an example. So there's some sort of biology going on in the body of a woman who is having a child, feeding a child, etc. So maybe that has something to do with it.
Changes everything. I mean, I'm very fortunate. Pretty much everything looks exactly the same as it did before, except my boobs, of course. They're just flaps of skin that hang low now, and but that's okay. I'm proud of what they've achieved. You know, I noticed because I used to just pull them out the top of my top, like to, you know, like up there and tucked in, but like I would normally pull them out here to feed them. But now they're down so low, it doesn't really matter if I pull them out the top or the bottom of my shirt, like lift the bottom, because that's how much they've moved. But that's fine. But you know, like I don't have stretch marks or anything like that. So I often, it's a bit sad actually, because I live at the beach, so I'm in a bikini a lot of the time, and I get people saying, did I adopt her? And so then I've got to pull my bikini bottom down and say, no, look, here's the big old cesarean scar, because the scar is quite low down. I know, she's mine. Boobs. Yeah. 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 But no, there's definitely changes on the inside.
And
how are you?
Nothing you've gone through would change your mind about going through it again, other than the fact that you definitely recommend it, correct?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, no, I'd love to give her a sibling, but I don't think that's going to happen.
Ulysses says he's got to move to Australia. You know, that's probably it. It's probably the Australian genes. That's why Chelsea's so healthy.
Oh, she's half Australian, half British, and the British side is you know, farming. So I can't take credit there. I think a lot of it is the healthy farming genes. Yeah.
All right, let me try to make my way through another story here, and this talks about regenerating memory from neural stem cells. And you're talking about maybe something that'll help. Oops, what did I do? I pressed the wrong. Okay, I pressed the wrong button, eliminated a whole bunch of links, but that's okay. Don't worry, hang with me, guys. There we go. This is watching the old guy dealing with the technology is always a lot of fun. All right, there we go. There you go. There's a picture of a brain. Okay. The absence of one specific species of gut bacteria. Oops, this is not the story I was going to talk about, so it's something different. The absence of a specific species of gut bacteria causes social defects in mice. By adding this bacteria species back to the guts of affected mice, the researchers were able to reverse some of their behavioral deficits, which are reminiscent, there's a caveat, reminiscent of symptoms of autism spectrum disorder in humans. The investigators are now looking to explore the effects of probiotics on neurodevelopment disorders in future work. Other research groups are trying to use drugs or electric brain stimulation as a way to reverse some of behavioral symptoms associated with neurodevelopment disorders. But we have a new approach. Whether it could be effective in humans, it has been effective in mice, we don't know yet. Okay. So to begin with, the researchers fed approximately 60 female mice a high-fat diet that was the rough equivalent of consistently eating fast food multiple times a day. They bred the mice daily and waited for them to bear young. The offspring stayed with their mother for 3 weeks, and then they were weaned onto a normal diet. After a month, these offspring showed behavioral deficits, such as spending less time in contact with peers and not initiating interactions. First, we wanted to see if there was a difference in the microbiome between the offspring of the mouth mothers fed a normal diet versus those fed with a high-fat diet. They used something called 16S ribosome RNA gene sequencing to determine the bacteria composition in their gut. We found clear differences in the microbiota of the two maternal groups, one group with the healthy diet, the other group with the fat-laden diet. The sequencing data was so consistent that by looking at the microbiome of an individual, we could predict whether its behavior would be impaired. Next, they tested whether the specific differences in microbiome were causative effects underlying the social impairments in offspring of mothers fed high-fat diet. Now, because mice eat each other's excrement, the old poop pills, the researchers housed the animals together so that they could acquire microbiota from their cage mates. When socially impaired, 3-week-old mice born to mothers on the high-fat diet were paired with normal mice, the full restoration of the gut microbiome and a concurrent improvement in behavior was observed after 4 weeks. That is, the mice from the high-fat mothers eating the excrement from the mice that were from mothers with a healthy diet, and then after 4 weeks, they started exhibiting these healthy behaviors. The investigators concluded that one or more beneficial bacteria species might be important to normal social behavior. The fecal transplant experiments in mice with microbiota provided causal evidence that an imbalanced microbial ecology in the mice born to mothers with high fat was possibly responsible for their social deficits. And then they were looking for a specific bacteria species that could be affecting the behavior. And they found a bacteria like Cotobulus returi or something like that, which was reduced more than 9-fold in the microbiome of mice bred to mothers on a high-fat diet. The authors wondered whether the reward circuitry in the socially impaired mice was dysfunctional because of this one particular bacteria. They found that in response to social interaction, there was a lack of synaptic potentiation in a key reward area. Okay. Let me find my way back to the Hangout. All right. So the diet of the mother affects the offspring. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah, but it's easily fixed within a short amount of time. That's great.
Yes.
I think I'm really missing an entrepreneurial opportunity here. I should be selling Chelsea's poo for sure. So if there are any people out there unhealthy, unsocial, antisocial, fat, whatever, yeah, drop me a line and I'll send you a used nappy. No worries. You know, for a fee.
Well, I mean, you can sell your breast milk too, right? You still got breast milk in the icebox?
Yeah, there's some in the freezer.
There you go. You sell
Yeah.
Chelsea's poo pills. You sell your own milk, which must be beneficial since it worked with help Chelsea so much. You got a whole industry going there, Pamela.
Oh, I know. Yeah. Yeah, I definitely think she's taking less now. So actually, just to physically have relief, I have to pump a little, just a little bit. Yeah.
I saw ya.
Yeah.
Birds.
The birds. I know.
Fishies.
And the fishies.
Dog.
And the dogs.
Eyes.
That's right. She's talking about a house that we just did because one of the dogs had an eye issue. We had to clean it twice a day. And there were birds. There were no fishies though.
Water.
Yeah, we had to squirt water and that kind of thing and give it a wipe out. That's right.
Shout out to Hot
Fishies
Rod.
were at the-
Hello, Hot Rod. One more guy joined us in the chat area.
Well, why don't these people come on?
I don't know. Maybe they have connection problems. I want to. Let's see. Where are we? Where are we? Come on. Somewhere in here, I've got a link for Hot Rod. If you can't get into, can't see the YouTube, come on. Hang in there, Hot Rod.
I don't want cardboard.
Okay. Link to the YouTube.
I'm good. How are you? I'm good. How are you?
Okay. I also wanted to use this as a jumping off point, talking about people with autism. And I don't see autism as a disease. And I get the impression that a lot of people view autism as something that we have to eliminate. It's a disease people shouldn't have. You got to correct the disease. If we're reaching the point where you're going to be able to tell from even an embryo, you're going to be able to look at the DNA sequence of an embryo and say, this is the DNA sequence of a child when it's born that could have autism. Now, to me, that is not, and if you could correct it, to me, that's not in itself a sufficient reason to, let's say, take that particular sequence in and take it out. Because I don't view autism as a disease. Now, you have high-functioning people and low-functioning people. Obviously, low-functioning people, it represents problems. A lot of the time, social issues and mental problems as well. But a high-functioning autistic person, their view of the world, the way in which their brain functions, can actually afford an advantage. You have many examples of high-functioning autistic people Temple Grandin and others, where it could help them. And so this is an evolutionary experiment. So we shouldn't be looking at autism as a disease. What we should be doing, the approach to my way of thinking is, one, yes, you want the parents to be prepared. You want to be able to say, okay, this child has certain potential for certain things. One of them could be autistic. Maybe you can even tell whether it's going to be high functioning or low functioning. The parent can be prepared. The parent can be prepared to deal with the child, help the child in whatever way it might be when it's born. You don't need to automatically, just get rid of the autistic DNA sequence, whatever that might be. So I don't view autism as a disease, and I think what we want to do primarily is learn how to help children with autism, with any kind of social function, any kind of a problem, help them reach their most potential, their best potential. And with a high functioning autistic person, that potential could be better than with a person who doesn't have that particular spectrum, autistic spectrum. And I will also equate that to, I was reading about people who are born without the ability to feel empathy. And it's something that started out being associated with psychopaths. They looked at an MRI of a serial killer, and they saw he didn't have the neural connections. They didn't have the neural connections to feel empathy. But they also discovered there are many people who don't feel empathy. They're incapable of feeling empathy, but they're very successful in life. They have children. Go ahead.
That's the thing, because I was going to say that's the difference between a psychopath and a sociopath. So a psychopath apparently kills or causes harm or whatever because they get off on it. Whereas a sociopath, if you're in their way and the easiest way to get you out of their way is to kill you, then they will, and they'll feel nothing. But they don't get off on it. So that's more like a sociopath. Not feeling empathy, and you can still be quite successful.
The lack of empathy is simply a potential. And what I've got to believe is to create that psychopath, there's got to be environmental factors involved. I remember a guy who was studying serial killers, and he discovered he had a brain. And when he talked to his parents and his kids, they said he was different growing up. But he was very much loved. So you have that environmental component when you're talking about someone who lacks empathy. Let's see.
Yeah, well, I talked on here before ages ago about the book I read called Confessions of a Sociopath, and I highly recommend it to anyone. It's written by a woman about my age who's actually a lawyer as well, and and she didn't realize she was a sociopath for a long time, and she comes from a big family, and they're a Mormon family, and none of her siblings are sociopaths, and they were all brought up in the same environment, so she had to have it inbuilt to start with. But and there are environmental triggers, like her father's a narcissist, and that make it worse. But then she thinks, even though she doesn't actually believe in God or anything, she enjoys being a part of the Mormon church because she thinks that saves her a lot. It gives her, because she can't feel right and wrong and empathy and all that she doesn't have a moral compass like most of us do inside. So the church gives that to her. She's got a, she's got a book that says this is what's right and this is what's wrong and this is how you should behave in society, and that's how she's been able to become successful. Even though, if you're in a way, she's well, she said in the book. I mean, she's not going to admit to it, is she? If she has killed someone, but she said she's thought about it. But yeah, she hasn't yet. But she's killed animals if they're in her way. And the easiest way to get rid of them is just kill them. Then she's done that.
I want to answer a question that Hot Rod had in the chat room. And that is, can autism be medically proven to exist like a normal disease, or can some fake it? And the answer is you can't fake it. I mean, you can look at the genome, and there are medical tests you can do. In fact, that's how they, if you have a young child that's beginning to exhibit antisocial behavior, you can do medical tests to see whether or not autism is involved, that spectrum. So no, it's not something you can fake. Excuse me. Yeah. The inability to feel empathy, that's a range. Just like with autism, you talk about high functioning and low functioning. When you're talking about empathy, you're talking about non-existence in some cases, or you're talking about low and high. So, and the environment can modify behavior, obviously. I think, let's see, if you have someone who is you have a low functioning autistic child, if you could do something to increase their functional ability, and I don't know what, maybe when they're an embryo, you could do something to modify their genetic sequence, so they would have greater potential. Instead of being low functioning, they could be high functioning. I don't know, but you want to if you could, you want to be able to, you would like to be able to modify low functioning to high functioning. Now, if you're talking about someone born without empathy, do they really want empathy? I would guess no. I wonder. I would guess maybe they really don't want that empathy. They're probably perfectly happy with the fact that they don't feel empathy.
Yeah, exactly. It's quite limiting. They're able to think more logically and with more reason because they don't have feelings.
That's also a behavior you will see with some autistic children, that antisocial behavior, and it's part of it might be just an extreme focus. They can focus on one thing and block out everything else. Well, in some in some jobs, that's good. I mean, that's great if you're working on a lab and you're going to have to do 9,000 experiments or something, or you have that extreme focus. You're not going to get distracted. You're working on code, computer codes. You don't want to get distracted. Well, then, having something like autism could be an advantage.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, I mean, there are plenty of people who don't have autism but still display those antisocial behaviors, and you can't do anything about that, can you? I don't know whether it's a result of drugs or environment or what, but there are some crazy people out there. And I don't mean to be, no, I'm not qualified to say if someone's crazy or not. I don't want to receive hate mail about saying that, but you know what I'm talking about.
That's such a subjective word. What the heck does crazy mean? It's almost a meaningless word.
It is. Meaningless words, yeah. I mean, I don't know if you saw my post on Facebook earlier, but I don't know, you guys got Gumtree over there? It's like eBay, but it's another site. And I'm selling, you know, crap on Gumtree. I'm trying to get my possessions down to a minimum. And this guy rings me up and he says, oh, I see you're selling this, this, and this. And I said, yeah. And he goes, oh, well, I've got some stuff like that for sale too. Do you want to buy mine? No? I can't get rid of my own. Why would I want yours? He goes, oh, I thought you could sell it together. No? And he goes, oh, well, how would you recommend I sell mine? And I said, on Gumtree, where you found mine? All right. Yeah. I think that's an antisocial behavior and on the fringe of being crazy.
Mike in the chat room, Mike in the chat room has made an interesting observation. He says if you're talking about somebody perhaps who has an extreme focus, be it autistic or sociopathic, he says maybe they're robots. They're like robots. Well, you know what? That could be an advantage. If you think like a robot, the robots take over, they're going to be, you know, you're going to get along with them a lot better than everybody else. Yeah, got an interesting story. For me, there are people, they treat psychological conditions through musical therapy. Okay. And I thought this was just kind of interesting. Number one, I didn't realize that there was such a thing as musical therapy. Let me read a little bit of this. Let me just screen share. I thought it was kind of interesting. All right. This is the researchers at Durham University in the UK and in Finland. They call them, they're musicologists. So you can get a degree from college and be a musicologist. And they looked at the emotional experiences associated with sad music of 2,436 people across a large-scale survey in the UK and Finland. They identified the reasons for listening to sad music and emotions involved in memorable experiences related to listening to sad music. The researchers said that the majority of people surveyed highlighted the enjoyable nature of such experiences, which in general led to clear improvement of mood. What? Listening to sad music makes you happy? That's what they're claiming. The researchers said that listening to sad music led to feelings of pleasure related to the enjoyment of music in some people. Feelings of comfort where sad music evoked memories in others. That I can get. You have events, yeah, you're listening to Hank Williams or something and some past, you know, at a barbecue or something, and the experience was a good experience, and now you heard the sad music, so you see associated back to that good experience. That I can understand.
What is sad music?
Country western, not country music. You ever heard Hank Williams?
I've heard of him. I don't know if I've heard him. I'd have to look him up.
Let me get out of the screen. That's basically what I wanted to talk about here, but a lot of country music, it talks about the sad experience. I think if you want to, well, there's probably, I think, there is the saddest song I have ever heard in my life. Hank Williams, if you've never heard him, I'm going to do, I don't believe you can hear it, so you don't have to play it, but I'm going to give you a link so that you can get to experience some really, really sad music. He wrote a song called I Am So Lonesome I Could Cry. Okay.
Yeah, I've heard that.
You heard of that? Okay, then I won't send you the link. You won't have to.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever really felt lonesome because I'm quite happy with my own company. You know, but I know people who they can't be on their own for too long. They get depressed. They get unhappy. They'd rather anyone be around than, even if they're not, you know, sort of a person they really want around. They'd rather anyone be around than be on their own, and I don't get that. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I don't like most people. I don't want to. I'd rather spend time on my own than with people just for the sake of being out with people. So yeah, I don't get that.
Well, I know there's mood music, of course. Music to get people into their mood. Sometimes you have a romantic music is supposed to do it. Elevator music tends to distract people. So music, like art, does affect moods. But I never equated it with an enjoyable experience. Really, really sad, you know? I broke up with my girlfriend and my dog died, and I don't know. But apparently something that enjoyable. Maybe the sociopaths do. Maybe that's what it is. I don't know.
There's I suppose it would be that I like that would be considered sad music is, I'll get you a link, Shivers by is it Hunters and Collectors? Who sings it? No, not Hunters and Collectors. Who was it? It's an Australian band. Hang on, a concert live once. Screaming Jets, that's them. Hang on, I'll get the link. Good old YouTube. Shivers by the Screaming Jets. And I like that song, and I suppose people probably would find that a depressing song. Like the very first line is, I've been contemplating suicide, but it really doesn't.
That's fun. Hey.
I can't sing, sorry people. But, I don't know, yeah, I like it. It's a good song.
So we have Rorx. I didn't realize Rorx snuck in. Hello, Rorx. Rorx has sent me a link to it says the perfect country western song. Oh, this is Go Bear. I don't know what this is. Having my doubts about this.
Okay, I'll put the link.
That's a Hank Williams sort of a sound, definitely. No. Oh, okay. You got these Screaming Jets. Oh, interesting picture.
An Australian band. I like that song. You can't hear it, but I've got it playing.
I've been contemplating suicide, but it really doesn't suit my style.
I won't sing.
So I think I'll just act bored instead.
But have you looked it up? You can look at the lyrics anyway.
Yeah, I looked it up.
Yeah. So they're really quite depressing lyrics.
Well, I know.
Like that song. So does that count?
I know there you have masochists. So masochists enjoy pain. That's not the same thing, but it could be similar in terms of how it affects the neurons in the brain. I wonder. You want to feel sad for yourself. You want to feel sad for yourself. The world is. I played a lot of music like that as a kid. I had an unhappy childhood, and I don't know that I found it comforting, but there was. I mean, that's the music I wanted to play because it fit my mood. And I guess it said, poor, poor, pitiful. Ah, there's a Linda Ronstadt song. Poor, poor, pitiful me. But that's a happy song. I don't know. Because it's played with upbeat music.
Yeah. And I mean, you know, Jagged Little Pill, the album by Alanis Morissette that made her, you know, huge in the 90s, came out when I was 16 or something. And that's probably, you know, sad music kind of thing. Well, it's angry music anyway, angry girl music. But I love it. And even now, you know, 20 years later, I listen to it and yeah, rock out to it. Makes me happy.
Yeah, angry I can get.
I don't
Yeah,
know.
definitely angry music. The whole girl riot deal and punk music, etc. You know, the word, if you let the lyrics can be fairly depressing, but you know the way it's played, you know, I don't know. All right,
Yeah, I'm just trying to, I think, yeah. I can't think of any music that makes me really sad though. But I don't listen to country, really.
Well, also personality. I mean, you're not a sad person to begin with. Now, maybe if you flunked your law exam and some other really bad things happen, but if you're the sort of a person, you know, and I'm a little bit like this, you live in the moment. So
I've had plenty of bad things happen. Oh no, I've had tons of bad things happen. But no, I still don't get sad about it. I just get on with it because that's just life. Flunking my law exam would be, if I did that, that would be nothing compared to many of my experiences. That wouldn't even register. I'd just go, oh well, I'll do it again. Who cares? That's nothing. But you just get on with it, don't you?
Yeah.
Well, you either get on with it or you kill yourself. I mean, that's
okay. There you go. 2 options.
Well, it is. I mean, when tragic things happen, I mean, they happen to everyone. They happen to people all over the world every day. So you either dust yourself off and get back up again, or you do yourself in. And I always dust myself off.
See, now, that'll never happen to you because you got Chelsea.
In spite of my liking that song, never
There you go.
contemplated.
If you're depressed, have a kid, right? If you're depressed, have a
I
baby.
guess so. Yeah. Depressed as a baby. Oh, that's what you wanted to do. Give it to me, naughty girl.
No.
No, you're a happy baby, aren't you?
Happy baby.
I'm going to touch on a couple
You're a
more
happy
stories very briefly.
With happy poo.
Technology. All right, technology. How much technology is being used everywhere in the world? Drones. In this particular case, you have indigenous people of Panama, and they're having a real problem with forest deforestation, the forest being cut down. And their natural environment, what they need to have their own sustenance, etc. So what they've done is people have taught them how to use drones. And what they can do with the drones is they can monitor over a wide area whether people are illegally cutting down trees, for an example. And then they can report them to the authorities. So there's an example where the use of drones all over the world, even in third world areas, it's just providing so much potential. You know, it's helping people discover perhaps if you go into some parts of South America where maybe there's old ruins and nobody can see them, you get the drone from the air and the satellite, you get the aerial view, and you can discover things. So I think that's kind of a neat story. Even these people in Panama, indigenous people, are using this drone, being given this drone technology so that they can help. They can report things like illegal cutting of forest. Got another one that has an amazing graphic. I don't know if I can find the story that goes along with it. Let's see. Oh, yeah, this is a story about the United States. We're talking about connectivity, paths, species moving from one part of the country to the other. And the main reason I wanted to go over this particular story is this just an amazing graphic showing the difference between two parts of the United States. How you see all of this diversity in the western part of the United States and very little, with climate change induced, with climate change affecting different species. In the West, very successful. In the East, not successful at all. And it says western areas of the U.S. provide greater temperature ranges and fewer human interruptions than the eastern landscape, allowing plants and animals to move towards more hospitable climates with fewer obstacles. A new study has found that only 2% of the eastern U.S. provides the climate change connectivity required by species that will likely need to migrate, compared to 51% in the western United States. I mean, that's just amazing. The paper suggests that creating climate-specific corridors between natural areas could improve that connectivity as much as 60%, 65% nationwide, boosting the chances of different species to survive. And the main reason we want that is getting back to diversity, biodiversity. And what would happen, you see on the West Coast, a lot of diversity, a lot of different types of animals and plants being able to move to different environments very easily and surviving. And you're going to have a problem in the eastern part of the United States, particularly the southeastern part of the United States, where you could wind up with far less diversity and a less healthy environment. So I just want to include that just because that's just an amazing difference between the two parts of the country. And again, diversity. You need diversity in everything. Diversity in culture, diversity in your gut microbiome. We talked about that. Diversity when you're talking about agricultural, different types of crops. You don't want to have to rely on one kind of crop. You don't want to have one kind of animal species dominating the environment. Wherever you go, you want to have diversity. All right. I want to look for something I can use to entertain us here. Don't think Justin's going to make it. I'm going to go, this is it's drifting off into politics. It's kind of an interesting survey. Now this was a political survey conducted by Quinnipac University. Now there's two organizations that use statistically valid statistical sampling techniques. That's the Pew Research Center, that's the United States. Pew Research Center, which mainly focuses on religion and society, and Quinnipiac, which focuses on politics. Now, let me screen share. Kind of neat little survey, and one part of it is really kind of a head scratcher to me. Okay. All right. Now, Americans do not believe Republican Donald Trump will build a wall on the Mexican border or expel 11 million illegal immigrants if he's elected, and voters don't believe Hillary Clinton will even try to limit secret money in politics or rein in the power of Wall Street. Okay, lots of skepticism about both political candidates. Only 20% of voters believe Trump will be able to build a wall, and 39% say he's not even going to try, and if he tries, he will fail. Trump, only 19% say that he will be successful in deporting 11 million illegal immigrants, and 45% think he may actually try, and 29% say he won't try. Clinton, they don't believe Clinton is going to try to remove secret money from politics. 63% of the voters say she won't even try. Only 9% think that, 27% think that she will even try or fail. So all of these different statistics here point to the fact that with both Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump, there's not a lot of credibility. Now, here's the one that I was surprised at. Now, I don't know if you know about our bathroom controversy, Pamela, here in the U.S., and it relates once again back to transgender people.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
When I look at these numbers, it's even more ridiculous. There's only a small gender gap, as American voters say 56 to 36% of that the schools should not be required to allow transgender students to use bathrooms and locker rooms consistent with their own gender identity. 56%. That's ridiculous. And men oppose the requirement 63%, and women oppose it 49%. I want to make sure I read that accurately. That schools should not be required to allow transgender students to use, actually, maybe I got that backwards. Should not be required to allow transgender students to use bathrooms and locker rooms consistent with their own gender identity. Okay. Voters 18 to 34 are divided, supporting this transgender requirement, and 47% are not. Okay. The bathroom is a very
Go
ahead.
Well, I was going to say the difference there with your schools compared to our schools. When bathrooms is one thing, but because you have stalls, you can close the door and lock it and do whatever you need to do inside your stall. So you have privacy. So I don't understand why they're not all unisex. But locker rooms, we don't have that. Like you guys, they get undressed and shower. You just don't. We don't have locker rooms. You're sweaty. I mean, you don't shower at school. You just if you're sweaty from sport and you still have school left, then you can maybe go into a toilet and change your clothes if you want to. But there's no such thing as locker rooms and showers and at all. So it's a completely different environment here.
Yeah,
and I wouldn't be for anyone doing that, whether you're transgender or not. I don't think you should be forced to put your body on display for anyone. But it's completely different culturally here, so I can't really comment, I suppose.
Yeah, that's cultural. But and this I wanted to get to that little part, and I think I butchered the statistics, but I think you get the point with this whole bathroom issue, where it's mainly rural areas that want someone who has transitioned. If their birth certificate says they're a man, they want that person to use the men's bathroom because their birth certificate says they're a man. Now, this is only happening, that I know about, in mostly rural areas. And part of it is they probably don't encounter a lot of any transgender people. You go to a big city, you're going to meet people, and a lot of the times you don't even know if they're transgender or not. So it becomes a far more acceptable thing. Rural areas are more likely to have a more traditional view. But again, getting back to one of the stories I talked about further, is that if people understood, this is not a casual decision. Gee, I think I want to be a woman today. It's not a casual decision. There's a very long process you have to go through. And it isn't even a case of you say, I want to do it. It's a case of you must do it. You must feel like
But the thing,
you have. Go ahead.
no, I was going to say, I just don't think anyone should have to do the whole locker thing. 'Cause the thing is, as far as I understand, you can't have the operation until you're 18, right? Because you have to give consent as an adult. But you can take hormones from a young age. So you could have breasts and a penis. And there's nothing you can do about it until you turn 18. That's so either male or female lockers and having to undress and shower and that's going to be embarrassing for anyone. I mean, it's hard enough being a teenager and having body issues and even just being fat. You know, if you're fat or if you're skinny or whatever. Yeah, that sucks. I'm glad I didn't grow up there.
That's a good point. Body image issues. And you're exactly right. That could reinforce that body image issue. You know, peer pressure. You don't look like your peers. Whatever that perfect body image is supposed to be, you're right. And a lot of Americans have been very upset. There's an awful lot of peer pressure, mostly on girls, some guys, because, you know, that whole body issue deal. And maybe that does begin to start or becomes worse when someone who doesn't have that right body image that our society wants them to have, you know, begins to feel that pressure and makes them really feel bad. So that's a good point.
So why do you all have locker rooms and get in showers and force kids to do that?
I think it has to do with socially acceptable smelling. How you're supposed to be, you're not supposed to have a lot. You're not supposed to have body odor. Body odor is not something that's as acceptable in American culture as it is in some other cultures. Correct me if I'm wrong, but from a health standpoint, you don't need to take a shower every day.
Right. Yeah. No, but if you're all doing physical education and playing sport, then you're all sweaty and stinky. So what's the difference? Like, can't you just wear deodorant? You're only talking about a few hours. You're only talking about a few hours, right?
Now you're going to go outside and you're going to be smelling up the hallways of the school. It is probably.
Why aren't they wearing deodorant? I live in the tropics, right? I live in the tropics. I know about sweat and I know about stink. And actually, I was just told recently by someone that I always smell good. Now, I would beg to differ because I reckon I can get some of my stink on. But I wear a really good deodorant. I think it makes a difference. You don't need to shower just because you got a bit sweaty. I'd be in the shower for 10 months of the year if that was the case. Like, I'd never leave the shower.
Well, culturally, when I was in Japan, now in Japan, you go to the bathhouse, you take basically 2 showers. Now, this maybe has more to do with being clean than smelling, but you scrub. I mean, you have to scrub to the point where your skin is red. This is a public bathhouse. And before you go into the bath. Now, in the public bathhouses, you have the men in one part and the women in the other, but there's no partition between the two. Mm-hmm. So there's no naked problem.
Yes,
but they're going to be making sure you're taking those 2 showers to clean them up.
But you're talking about men and women. That's different to boys and girls. What men and women do.
I'm going to guess the same thing might be true for that in school. I don't know this in school, but I'm going to guess.
They have to, though. They're made to. They're made to take a shower. It's not optional, apparently.
There's no rule that says you have to, but you do. And actually, there are some kids that don't, probably. So when I say I think it's a cultural thing. It's simply a cultural thing.
Prison.
And if you don't, people might laugh at you or look at you or something. So it's all peer pressure, and it's a cultural thing.
It sounds like prison, where you're all made to shower. And you do it to your children.
What?
Well, in prison, they're all made to shower together, right? Because they've got to be watched by a guard, so you can't have them petitioned off because that's not, But
military. When I was in the military.
In the military, right.
Yeah.
So, and that's what you do to your children. Sorry, it doesn't make much sense to me.
We're not talking about logic, okay?
No. There are 72-hour deodorants now. There's really no need to have to take a shower straight after sport. You can wait till you get home.
Okay.
If you get just change your clothes if you need to.
All right. Hot Rod in the chat area.
And then
Hot
it's
Rod
fine
in the chat area says it's a law in Canada. You can't wear strong perfumes, commercial places, due to some people with allergies, for instance. And who hasn't sat next to a person walking down the street in front of their homes? Let me see.
I'm not talking about strong perfume.
Who hasn't smelt a person walking down the street in from your house, etc. If you take mass transit in Europe, you're going to be around a bunch of smelly people. And like you say, everybody smells the same, so nobody pays any attention to it.
Oh, no. I was on a bus the other day, and two people got on, and they were on for several stops. And I was like this until they got off again. I felt sick. No, they stunk. If I were the bus driver, I actually wouldn't have let them on because that's just wrong. But I'm not talking about strong perfumes. An antiperspirant deodorant, you can't smell it. It doesn't smell strong. It just stops you from smelling.
Is there something in the chemicals that would create a problem for a person with allergies, whether or not it stopped them from smelling or not? Is there something I don't know. If there's some chemical makeup of the, I don't know.
Okay, so people who have allergies, they might need to shower. But aren't we talking about a minority there?
Don't know. I don't know what percentage of people would be allergic to
deodorant. That's really weird to do.
That I don't know. But it's the other person. It's not themselves. It's the other person who let's say puts on a lot of perfume, and you go to some.
About perfume, though. We're not talking about perfume.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's what I was talking about.
We're talking about we're talking about antiperspirant deodorant.
Okay.
Unless someone goes up and sniffs their underarm, how are they going to smell it?
Don't know.
I don't have people come up to me in the street and lift my arm up and take a big whiff. Who does that?
Business environment. In a business environment, as I recall, if I was in a meeting, you could and someone wasn't showering daily, let's say, or you notice it, and people feel uncomfortable. Now the thing there is, you're talking about one person. Now, if you were in a meeting and nobody took a bath, and it was just natural for people to have natural body odor, then it probably wouldn't be a problem. So I think a lot has to do with the social environment. Let me drift off into a question, because I wanted to get into politics. We're having such an extraordinary election. And you're having an election in Australia now. And your situation might be somewhat similar to ours. Now, in your case, you have a more conservative prime minister at the moment. The prime minister, apparently, from what I've read, has been losing a lot of popularity over the last month. And there's a reasonable chance they might not get elected. In our particular, well, go ahead.
No, I'm just saying I hope they don't get elected. No.
Now, in our particular case, we have a, well, he's an idiot. He's a racist. There's a lot of definitions I could use about Donald Trump. I'm not even sure how much of a conservative he is, but the Republican Party being more conservative. Now, he's been also starting to lose his popularity. He's got almost no chance of getting elected. The gist of the story that I had, and I'll include it in the show notes if people want to read it, very long article in the New York Times. What it comes down to is that with our Republican Party, they're kind of painting themselves into a corner because they're, and this is Donald Trump, they're appealing mostly to a class of white people who are anti-immigrants, a class of white people who don't like the way society is going. And that's not the demographic that the United States is becoming. 30% of American voters are naturalized citizens or immigrants. They're from the family of immigrants. Well, they're sure not going to vote for the Republican Party. And the issues that the Republican Party have been pushing are not the kind of issues that are going to be popular with liberals and independents. So what we could see the start of a liberal renaissance in the United States. We may actually be seeing with independent, you need independent voters. Now, I don't know if you have independent voters in Australia, but in the United States, you've got Republicans, Democrats, 40% of the voters are independent. And most of those independents are what you would call more liberal than, as opposed to being more conservative. And so the Republicans, by being more conservative and appealing to the more conservative wing, they're really painting themselves into a corner. And we could actually be seeing in the United States a renaissance of liberal ideas. So they could, Trump. Go ahead.
I thought that the issue with Trump, I mean, all of his wives are immigrants. I thought the issue was illegal immigrants, and I wonder if immigrants who have, you know, they might resent the illegal immigrants.
You're right. He's specifically saying, well, he talks about deporting people that are in here, and he does talk about illegal immigrants. But
I mean, some people who, I mean, sorry, I've just thought of an anecdote. Like, I've got one of my friends, Catherine. Her mother is British. Now, her mother, well, she's Australian now, but her mother had lived here for about 33 years, married to an Australian. Didn't even realize that she hadn't gotten around to completing the paperwork. Okay. All her kids are Australian. Her entire life is in Australia. She goes back to Britain for a holiday to visit family. They almost don't let her come back. She had to complete. So she was technically an illegal immigrant for about a decade and didn't even realize it. And so she had, anyway, she's an Australian citizen now. She sorted it out. But she could have very well, legally, she could have been denied re-entry ever again, really, and forced to stay in England. How scary would that be? So I don't know if that's a common story or not. That's just a story that I know from my friend. Yeah.
I'm guessing.
I don't know. You hear that happening?
Australia may have tougher immigration laws than the United States does. I don't know if that's a fact, but that's my guess. I think Australia has been really tough when it comes to immigrants.
No, we're tough unfortunately, with refugees and asylum seekers. But immigrants, no, it's just if you pay for it, you can get in.
Okay.
Yeah. Coming from different countries costs, different amounts of money, but no, it's not that difficult to get into Australia.
Well, one of the things with Trump, where this is immigration, but it's also more racial, there was a judge. He has an organization, a fund of some sort, that was sued. The judge ruled against him. The judge comes from a Mexican background. He referred to the judge as Mexican. The judge was born in Indiana, so he's not a Mexican. He's an American.
Yeah.
So there you're picking on Mr. Trump, picking on a non-white group, really. And that's where you look at the Republican Party, they have very few non-whites. They've got some, and you're right, there are some naturalized citizens who are opposed to, or strongly opposed, and want tougher laws preventing immigrants from coming in. My stepmother, I'm going back to the 1960s. She was from Latvia, and she immigrated to she wanted to go to Australia, actually, but she broke her ankle and she couldn't get on the boat, so she had to come to the United States. All right. She was a racist in her views, not in how she treated people. She worked at a hospital, a factory. She treated the people in the factory. I know she had friends. She was an anti-Semite. One of her best friends was Jewish. So she treated people one way, but her views, very much racist, very much anti-Semitic. So you're correct. You certainly have some immigrants and children of immigrants who are opposed to other groups of immigrants from coming in. But in general, the United States, I think, has been pretty friendly, not to the Muslims at this point. Well, actually, no, I can't even say that, because you had the story I read a couple of weeks ago in Utah, Republican conservative Utah, where 2 Utah senators said one of them was dying, and he said he wanted to be introduced to Muslims, if there are any in the hospital, and he wanted to thank them for coming into the country because they were really very good citizens. So you have a fear, yes, among some people, but I think it's a minority, to tell you the truth. A minority of people, just like the recent incident in the United States where you had a guy and he murdered a lot of people in the gay bar. Now, he was a Muslim. He made the claim that he was motivated by ISIS, but really, when you look at his background, he was a violent guy. He was accused of domestic abuse. So he was a violent guy. He could get an AK-47, an automatic weapon. That's a real problem in the United States. So the issue was hatred against gays, not promoting ISIS or anything. ISIS had nothing to do with the situation. He was using that as an excuse. So I think and that's another example, I think. Muslims are very well accepted in most parts of the United States. I've read about Kansas, very conservative Kansas, Republican. Kansas does not vote for Democrats at all. It may be one of the most conservative religious states in the United States, but they have Muslim groups of teenage girls going out selling cookies, and going into healthcare facilities and taking care of elderly people. So in the most of the United States, most Americans realize that Muslims are productive American citizens. And the people like the Trumps, people like the Republicans are getting trapped because I think they're going against the majority of people. And that's when I talk about, I'm encouraged by a trend, I think, of diversity. Here's that word I was using all night long, diversity. Diversity in the United States, accepting gay people, transgender people. We're seeing that. America is becoming much more accepting of people from all kinds of backgrounds and all, whether you're gay or straight or whatever. I think we're really seeing an acceptance of greater, a desire to see greater acceptance of diversity in the United States. Okay, I'm off my back again. What do you think about us? What do you think about the long-range in Australia? What do you think the long-range prospects are? Are you seeing a more hopeful future, less hopeful?
No, I think the people who want to burn coal, mine and burn coal will get in, unfortunately. No, I think most Australians are ignorant about that kind of thing. I hear racist comments come out of people that I would never have thought they would say things. And they're just really ill-informed, and they think they're informed because they heard it on the news. And, you know, some people have opinions about refugees, and I'm like, have you ever met a refugee? Have you ever talked to a refugee? How did you form that opinion then? Yeah, I am quite pessimistic, actually. I'll be pleasantly surprised if we vote someone good in. I'll do my bit. I'll vote and promote the representatives that I support here in the region, and hope that people listen. But no, sorry, I'm quite pessimistic, unfortunately, because even the Greens candidate here for the federal election is the only one not pro-coal. So you've got the two major parties; they're both pro-coal. Can't vote for them.
Yeah. Yeah, Hot Rod not Hot Rod, Jay in the chat room has got a link to a story. I haven't read it whatsoever. Okay. In fact, I'll give you a link to it if you want to read it. Pamela, I'll put it in the chat area. I don't know what it's about, so let's see. You've got killing of Joe Cox over an MP with compassion. Called, the husband of the Labor MP calls for fight against the hatred that killed her. Okay. 41 mother of 2 children, victim of a daylight attack outside her West Yorkshire constituency, surgery by a man who shouted Britain first. So she's an Irish, okay, the first killing of a serving MP since Irish Republicans murdered someone in 1990. Let's see. Police arrested this guy, Thomas Muir. I don't know what she is at this point. I don't know why she was targeted. Is using an old-fashioned gun and knife in the attack. Okay, charity worker. She was a charity worker. Okay. She wanted 2 things above all else to happen. 1, that our precious children are bathed in love. Unite against the hatred that killed her. Now, okay, Hot Rod, I'm not really, or Jay. What? Why? Let's see, hours, blah, blah, blah. I don't know why she's being targeted.
No, I saw something about that. One of my friends who's Australian and British but lives here posted something about them today. So, and actually 2 people I know, British people, posted that Britain first, that group is not speaking for Britain. There was a lot of, we were in Britain for a while, for a few weeks, and I was surprised how, I don't know if you still call it racism when it's white against white, but there was a lot of prejudices. So the Irish people are gypsies who sell dodgy generators out of the tobacco trucks, and Polish people are just coming to, these are not my views, these are views that I heard while I was there, and they discussed them. Polish people are just coming for the free healthcare. People in Wales are poor and common. Yeah, they were so discriminatory against each other, and that's just the white people against the white people. Imagine what they say about people who are not white. I was really surprised to find all these prejudices within England. So West Yorkshire, that's up north. I didn't get that far north. Well, I mean, I went to Switzerland, but I didn't get that far north within England, so it's pretty cold there. We stayed around the Bristol area. I'm not sure why she was targeted either. I haven't really looked into those posts, but I have seen them posted today. And
Jay is saying that
surprise
she
me.
was apparently, there's a big question, a referendum about whether or not Britain should leave the European Union,
the EU.
I think. And she was a promoter, so
Yep.
apparently she was targeted because she was promoting, I guess, membership in the Union, membership in the European Union. But
well, I hope they stay in. My daughter's British or half British, and you know, one of the really good things about that is that she can, when she turns 16 or whatever, she can go and, if she should so choose, go and live and work and buy property anywhere in Europe. She's really set. But if they leave the EU, well, sorry, Britain, but it's not as exciting a prospect to just have Britain as an option.
yeah,
I mean, it means her passport is not worth as much.
when I think
And
of,
a lot of the,
oh, go ahead, sorry.
well, I was going to say, with the exception of her dad, most of the British people that I met there, they don't even have passports. They've never left England, so they don't care about travel and opportunities they're on their doorsteps. I can't believe, you know, it costs, what did we work it out? It was Australian dollars. It was about 50 Australian dollars return. So you're looking at about 20, 25 British pounds to fly, return, Bristol to Ireland. And they don't do it. Anyway, so they don't. So I can. They're very. I mean, they kept their currency, didn't they? They didn't change to euros. I reckon they will leave. I hope they don't, but I reckon they will.
That's interesting, because they had colonies. So I would have thought the British would have done a lot of traveling to what used to be their colonies, like Australia. That's interesting.
They're really snobby about it, you know. Yeah, I mean, they Chelsea's dad, because only 12% of Australians today have convict DNA, and so as far as I know, I'm kind of an Irish potato famine girl. But you know, my family's been here for generations, so I don't really know. And he was quite disappointed to find he would prefer that I be from British convicts, criminals, than Irish. How snobby can you get? But that's normal over there.
It's normal of the
They're
older
really funny about the
generation.
lineage.
I mean, I can say,
No, I'm talking about this generation. I'm talking about my, you know, soon-to-be ex-husband.
I don't know, can't comment on that. I know that, I don't know. I don't know anything about England at this point, so I can't make any comments. I can relate, in my case, thinking about how society is changing, become more diverse, and the main thing is working and living with people. Once you start living and working with people on a daily basis, you realize very quickly they're just like you. And if you have two, you know, groups of people, United States, okay, black and white. Okay, black and white are supposed to be separate. And my God, you can't have any getting together and you can't having children. But yeah, you start the old rock and roll, start dancing together. Guess what? Black and white kids, they're going to be hooking up. I'm sorry. And you could say that about any two group of people. You know, the young Muslims in the United States, you know, maybe, you know, the young Muslims, second, third generations, they start going to the parties and whatever. They're going to be mixed. They're going to be hooking up with whoever the heck, you know, whatever group of people is around them. So as soon as you get that intermingling, those barriers fall apart. But you get a lot of people who want to keep the barriers up because they've always been there. And that's when they think in racial or they think in terms, this particular people. I remember I was simply like a bowling alley, bowling with a group of guys. And one guy kind of looks me up and down and says, he's Italian. He says, "You're Irish, aren't you?" So, you know, but it's you need diversity everywhere. That's my favorite word tonight. You need diversity, and it happens when you get. Well, go ahead.
No, I was going to say you don't just need it for those reasons. Genetically, you're stronger when you have diversity. Because you're better off. You're taking the best of each opposing DNA, and yeah, no, it's good. I mean, I've got a healthy child, and she's, you know, from diversity, our families are quite far apart, so that's good. You know, if you marry your first cousin, you're going to have some ugly, dumb children, aren't you? But sorry, people who do that, but it's true. You want diversity in your genes. It's I mean, the royal family in Britain, they used to all marry their cousins. Now they marry outside the family so that they can have healthy children. Mine's asleep at the moment.
We'll try to talk softly.
Oh, I'm talking softly. She can't hear you. You're in my ear.
Okay, I'm an optimist. I got rose-colored glasses. But, you know, take, for instance, technology. I think technology will have a big impact on eliminating segregation. And what I mean is that you go to school, you learn the math, you don't learn the math. Math doesn't know anything about, you know, some classes maybe a teacher or, you know, there could be some cultural impact. Not with math. Math is you get the equation right or you don't. Doesn't, you know, if I'm the person that gets the equation right, it doesn't make a bit of difference. If I'm a man, if I'm a woman, I'm a transgender, I'm black, white, it doesn't mean anything. It all comes down to I get the equation right or I don't. And I think that's what if you either can do the job or you can't. When I was growing up, a lot of it was, okay, if you're a girl, maybe you're going to be supervisor. You're never going to be a manager. Well, that's because, you know, we didn't have as much competition and a whole bunch of other stuff. Now, it doesn't work that way. If you want to be a successful company, you better hire the right people. And you better not, you don't care. You don't care if they're a man or a woman or whatever the heck it is. All you're going to ask is, can you do the job? So I really think as more and more jobs require technical skills, you will have to hire the person who can do the job the best. And you cannot ask, you know, gender, race has absolutely nothing to do with it. We're all going to lose our jobs to robots, of course, but
yeah. It's funny. What is that? Is that movie called? It's a teeny bop girl movie. Is it Mean Girls? Is that, I don't know, a decade ago or something? I'm thinking with Lindsay Lohan.
Mean Girls,
anyway.
that was Lindsay Lohan.
Yeah, okay, it's that movie. And yes, I have seen it. And I remember one line I remember in the whole movie. She's a math nerd, right? She's grown up in Africa, and come back to the United States, and she's going to a school in the United States for the first time in her life, and she's really good at maths and everything. And one of her friends at the school says, "Why do you like maths so much?" And she said, "Because it's the same in every language." I liked that. Yeah. Anyway, it had one deep line in the whole movie.
You look at Silicon Valley, and what I notice, there are a lot of people. You look at the people who are running the companies. They're not Anglo-Saxon Protestants. They've got names. They're from their background. Their parents, come from India, Asia. A lot of them have Asian names. They don't have English names. And the other thing is, a show that you like, that is The Big Bang Theory, right? That's nerds, so-called nerds. It's math. So that the popularity of that show shows how knowing math is becoming a good thing. It's not looked down on. Ooh, you're a nerd. Nerds is taking over the world because you need the math skills. You need the science.
I think I was quite fortunate. I must have gone to quite a nerdy school overall because, yeah, all my friends are really good at maths and science and that kind of thing. And we never got picked on or, anything like that. It was respected. So I think I went to it's only a public school, not private or anything. But I think I was fortunate, or maybe it was just the year that I went or something like that. My age group, I'm not sure, but I was fortunate to be in a pocket of people that made me better. It wasn't uncool to be smart.
I hope it has changed. It must have changed. When I was going to school, late 50s, early 60s. Well, I graduated in 61, but so late 50s, there was the boys' entrance and there was the girls' entrance. So you even entered the school, you were separated by sex. And it was very, you could see segregation everywhere. You could easily see segregation everywhere. Racial segregation, sexual segregation. I mean, I thought, I'm a single guy. Maybe it would be good if I could, learn how to cook or something. So I was going to take home economics, and I looked in, and they were all girls. So I said, "Oh no, this isn't." I should have probably taken the class, but I didn't. Shop, all guys in shop. Girls in shop class. So I really.
I really like taking, so we had what you call shop class. It's called, well, it was in my day 20 years ago, called manual arts. And you had manual arts A and manual arts B. And A was woodwork and B was metalwork. And everyone takes home economics and manual arts, cooking, sewing, A and B in the first year of high school. And then you choose your electives after that. It was you want to continue taking it or not. I should continue taking woodwork, and I got talked out of it by the teacher. They didn't want me in the class.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, so I didn't. I think I took sewing after that, and I quite enjoy sewing. I don't mind that. It's nice to create, but I just wanted to make something, so that's why I took sewing, because I like making things, but I would have preferred woodwork. Anyway, so since then I've taught myself some woodworking stuff, and I'm not too shabby. I don't mind metalwork either, but yeah, no, I really like woodwork. Anyway, so that was, I got talked out of that. So I don't know whether, but no, by the teacher. So I don't know whether they thought it would have been a distraction or something or what. But I hope they don't continue to talk girls out of it. That would be a shame. We had a guy in our cooking class, but he is gay. Not from taking cooking class. He's been married with, this is 20 years on now. He's been married with children, but then he's turned out he's gay.
Oh, yeah. I mean, in the United States, we've had gay people elected as the king and queen of the prom. So in most of the United States, I think it's accepted. But it is a problem in some parts. Where it is a problem, it tends to be in areas, rural areas perhaps, and I don't want to generalize because could be completely wrong, but it's people who, they've lived in the hometown, they know who they've lived with, they may not, they have a lot of experience, for instance, with Muslims. What do they know about Muslims? Terrorists. They pick up the headlines, terrorists. And they don't know Muslims. They don't work with them. They don't live with them. All they read is that headline. So they associate it, Muslims with terrorism, because they don't know any better.
The only domestic terrorist attack that Australia has had was a white Christian guy, and that was in 1996. Blonde hair, blue eyed. I was going to say something else then. I've lost it. Oh yeah. Okay. So when I was a teenager, well, actually from my whole childhood, there was a Canadian. We've talked about it before with Dale on here. There's a Canadian TV show called Degrassi, and they had like kids at Degrassi Street. Then they grew up a bit, and they had Degrassi Junior High, and then they had Degrassi High, and now they have Degrassi the Next Generation. And since I was at a house sit recently, so I watched a bit of the Next Generation just to see what Degrassi's like these days, because I loved it as a kid. And half the students are gay, but it's not talked about. They just are. I love that. They should. That's on like the Australian the ABC, I think, which is more of an educational channel. It's not on the mainstream channel here. That should be on the mainstream. That should be normal. Get rid of Stupid Neighbours and Home and Away and all this crap. I don't watch that, and I wouldn't let my kid watch that. Pardon me. But yeah, there was lesbians on there, and there were gay guys on there, and it's not something that's addressed. It's just normal, and that's how it should be.
I've got a question from.
So go to Degrassi.
Jay has a question for you. He said, ask Pam about the chocolate shop attack.
Oh, in Sydney? Yeah, okay. Yeah, well, no one really knows what happened there. Yeah, okay. And up until then, maybe, that was the only, the white Christian guy. Yeah, I had actually forgotten about the one in Sydney. That was more recently. When was that? They claimed to be ISIS, but I don't think they were. Let me have a look. Sydney chocolate terror. I don't know. How would you bring it up? Sydney chocolate shop terrorist. That's a Google search. Oh, it's 2014, was it? Gosh. Yeah, that's right. No, but that guy who committed that, he had been in jail. Oh no, so he'd been arrested. Sorry, for beating up his wife. So he was on domestic violence charges, and the judge let him out on bail. And so he shouldn't have been let out on bail. So then he just continued. As soon as he got out on bail, he continued his violence. That's right. Because then they were looking at the judge to say, hey, why the hell did you grant this guy bail when he's clearly a maniac? And he was able to get his hand on weapons. What did he end up being? We have a real domestic violence problem here in Australia. You're more likely to be killed by, as a woman, you're more likely to be killed by, a man that you've been intimate with than pretty much any other way. I'm just refreshing my memory on that. Because when it all happened, I was looking more at the judge than the guy who did it. Because he's clearly insane. And yet he was let out.
Yeah. You may not want to come to the United States because over the last 2 years, there have been record numbers of sales of assault rifles. I don't know the exact numbers. Thousands of Americans are buying assault rifles. Now, I am not worried about ISIS so much. I'm worried about all them people buying. I mean, I don't know the numbers again, but it was in the thousands, and it was more. And every year there was an increase in the number of Americans buying assault rifles. That's it. Is it? Can you buy an assault rifle in Australia?
Oh, no. No, definitely not. We don't have automatic or semi-automatic weapons available to anyone other than police or military.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think he killed 2 people. The one that I was talking about in 1996. How many? Martin Bryant. How many did he kill? I think he killed a lot. He had a shotgun though. He just went on a spree. 35 people, and he injured 23 more. So 58 people in the one that I was talking about, compared to the one that Jay has brought up in the chat room where 2 people were killed. That's why I wasn't including that. So I just wanted to make sure that I was remembering that correctly. Yeah. But yeah, that guy, again, that guy, sorry, when Martin Bryant killed 35 people and injured 23 more in 1996, that's when we stopped having automatic and semi-automatic weapons available, even though he did it with a shotgun. So that's actually when we brought that legislation in, and they all had to be recalled. And he was known to be mentally ill. He should not have had access to a gun. And now you have to do a psychiatric assessment here in order to purchase a gun, amongst many other assessments. You have to be a member of the Sporting Shooters Association of Australia. You have, I can't remember you have to be fingerprinted, so your fingerprints have to be on record. There's quite a few hoops to jump through before you can get any kind of gun here. Pistol license, oh my goodness, that can take years to come through. You can usually just be rejected. So there's a lot of actually good things that came out of that very sad event. But that's the thing. So the 2 people we've discussed here in Australia had prior police records. What the hell were they doing out?
Yeah, felons should never be allowed to have a firearm of any kind.
But why weren't they in jail? You're only supposed to come out of jail when you've, learned your lesson. Clearly they didn't.
There is a problem. Well, in the United States, you go before a board. The board is supposed to look at your record in prison, evaluate you, and say, okay, you're reformed, we can let you out. But many American prisons are overcrowded. And so what has happened in some locations is they simply say, overcrowded prison is it's not humane. We don't, we can't have all, we can't take care of all the people in prison. And so groups of people are let out of prison for the simple fact that prison's overcrowded. So we get that too. We did have a recent case. Judge actually got in trouble for it. It's not the same thing, but it's somewhat similar. The rape case. You had a Stanford University white guy, and he, if I remember I don't remember all the details, so I won't even try. But what it comes down to is he was convicted of raping a girl in school, a girl who was going to the same college as him. And a jury found him guilty. The judge gave him a 6-month suspended sentence because the judge said, well, the girl was drunk, he was drunk. You don't want to ruin a guy's life over something like that. Now, the judge there's a recall effort to get him out of so he could lose his job, possibly. He's been removed from a similar case he was trying by the DA. They removed him from the case. But that, and there are other, I've read about other cases like that. And it's, you know, it's a male judge having no idea what it's like to get raped, or how, you know, what it's like to be a woman in that kind, you know, they have no idea of you know, the trauma involved. So, but
yeah, I heard about that case, and his father was blaming the girl or something else. It's pretty scary.
But the thing is, there's such an outcry, so people understand that's just wrong. But with the assault rifles and with firearms control, there's a tremendous resistance by a large segment of the population for any kind of firearms control. And even after this incident where the guy killed a bunch of gay people in a bar, the Republican Party has been resisting outlawing AK-47s and has been resisting passing legislation. They tried to pass legislation just this past week, and it was blocked in the Senate. I don't know.
But that's because you have the right to bear arms. We don't have that here. But when that was written, we were talking about muskets. You're not talking about AK-47s.
Oh, yeah.
There's a big difference. There's a big difference.
I think it's simply people, one, people that don't want the government to tell them to do anything. They just resist any kind of regulation. We've got maybe two. One state I know of, New Hampshire, the seatbelt laws, and every other state you're required to wear a seatbelt when you're driving, except New Hampshire. You know, they don't want any laws telling us how we're supposed to live, is the idea behind it. And I think that's the same thing with a lot of people for some reason with like firearms control. Anytime you bring up that subject, they're going to be against it. They don't care. They're just opposed to the government telling them they can't have a firearm. And it's just ingrained. Firearms are just ingrained into the culture in many parts of the United States, and they see it as government interference, and there isn't any real logic behind it. No.
So how do you think that can change?
I don't know if it will. A couple of more incidents, maybe. I think.
How many do you need?
I don't know. Well, as long as you could say, well, it was a terrorist. You move the argument to a terrorist, not to a guy killing gay people or a guy with an AK-47. You say terrorist. And that's where you move the discussion to.
Okay. But what about all the ones that don't make mainstream media? Oh, you and Justin and I can't remember the statistics right now, but it's something like 60% of, no, I'm not even going to say 60%, but there's a high percentage of people who commit suicide do it with a gun, for example. And then you've got domestic violence that and absolutely do not punching someone in the face or whatever, but there's a big difference between punching someone in the face and shooting them in the face. And that's only an option if you can get your hands on a gun easily.
In the United States, you can get your hands on a gun easily, licensed or otherwise.
Yeah, but that's happening, and it's not on the news. That's not a terrorist.
Right, you're right.
I mean, people who want to commit violence will commit violence, but and they will find a way, whether they use their hands, whether they use a baseball bat, whether they use a knife. But It's the difference between maiming someone and killing someone. And it's not cool to maim people, but at least they still have their life. You know, that guy who killed 50 people. If he'd gone in there with a knife, how many people do you think? If he'd gone in there with a machete, how many people do you think he could have killed with a machete before he was stopped? 5? 10? Not 50.
I think the tide is slowly turning, but in the United States, as Justin has said, the tide turns very, very slowly. And just start off with many people. Now, I don't know all the rules related to when you buy a firearm, how it gets registered, and I don't even know if there's a national database. The police have complained about that, so that even if they find the gun, it's not easy for them to establish who the owner is. They have to get kind of lucky searching through the records. So we don't even have a national database of everyone who owns a registered gun. You get it registered at the gun shop, possibly with a local authority maybe, but there's no national database. And
so you could be from Nevada. You could go to California, buy an AK-47, then go back to Nevada and commit a crime with it. And you're registered in California, not in Nevada. So it's going to take a while for anyone to find you.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
That's scary.
Something I would like to see is make people legally liable for their firearm. By that I mean, even let's say if you're going
so if someone else commits a crime with it.
Commits a crime, you can be legally held responsible. So
I'm pretty sure you can be here. Yeah.
I'm not 100% sure.
You have to prove that you did, because you have to. Your gun has to be locked in a gun safe, and that kind of thing. And you can't just have it under your bed. It's got to be properly locked away. So if someone else commits a crime with your gun, you would have to prove that you had it locked up properly here, and somehow they got through your locks or whatever. If you left it lying around, you would be liable. Yeah. What happened with knives there? Because I noticed something the other day, and I've seen this before. I mean, I'm 36, so it doesn't apply to me, so I don't pay that much attention. But for buying knives in the shop, I saw a sign the other day, you have to be over 18 to buy these knives.
The only thing I know of is a knife over a certain length you can be arrested for. If they arrest somebody, and they search them and find a knife over a certain length, you can be charged with a crime. But as far as the type of knife, I don't know. It's just the length of the blade.
But anyone can buy knives at the grocery store or whatever, no problem.
Oh yeah.
Children.
Yeah. Well. I guess a child. They'd have to have their parents' credit card. I don't know what would happen in that case. You'd have to go up now you couldn't go into a place that sells like the Bowie knives and everything. But if a kid goes to the supermarket, well, I don't think a kid can buy anything at a supermarket and just walk up to the counter. Maybe some places where the people say, I don't care, you give me the credit card, I'm happy. But for the most part, I don't believe a child could actually, even if they had cash money, I'm not sure. Maybe they might if they had cash money. But if a kid walks up with a cart full of groceries, I don't know that they're going to be able to get through the checkout counter.
But a child can be 17 years old.
Oh, a teen could. A teen could.
Yes. I'm not talking about.
Okay.
Well, that's a child legally, under 18. So if they're 18 to buy certain knives, I'm just saying what I noticed in the shop the other day, and I've noticed it before. So I'm just my point that I'm trying to establish is, are your knives more regulated than your guns?
I would say no.
No.
But
Okay.
it's hit and miss.
I just wondered. Yeah.
See, another thing is
Because I wondered.
there's a big difference in different areas. And for instance, in New Hampshire is a small state, mostly rural. People grow up with guns. People walk around with rifles all the time. They go hunting. They don't think anything of it. You know, they got the pickup truck with the gun rack, and they don't think anything of it. It's just part of their culture again. So I mean, they probably are very good at practicing gun safety. Probably they're better at practicing gun safety than a lot of other areas. But they don't want anybody telling them they can't have their guns. So it's more of a cultural thing you're likely to see in different parts of the country. But that automatic weapon business, I don't know. What I'm hoping is, one, we're going to get a Democratic president. That's for sure, Hillary Clinton. Now, the question is, are the Democrats or Republicans going to control Congress? If the Democrats control Congress, there's a much better, I guarantee you, that gun control at a federal level will be introduced. The Democrats tried to introduce it this time, but there are more Republicans than Democrats. So the Republicans are putting up obstacles. But if you have more Democrats, and I'm not sure how much of a majority you need, and then I guarantee you will see gun control legislation. What you will also see is people suing. It'll go to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court in 10 years will decide whether it's constitutional. But you will see, if the Democrats control Congress, you will see legislative action. And there have been studies that show if you have a firearm in the house, you are more unsafe than safe. And I forget what it comes out to. But if you have a firearm in the house, again, for suicide and all these other reasons, domestic killings, etc., having a firearm in the house makes your home more unsafe than safe. But, you know, a lot of people don't care.
Us of guns. We're all sporting shooters, and there was no automatic, but there was a semi-automatic rifle until it was confiscated, and there were no accidents and no violence, and no one else, unless you came into a house and went into the room where the guns were kept, you wouldn't know that we had guns, and that's what we did every Sunday. And yeah, it's just the family sport. I never thought it was weird or anything. I'm actually looking. I've got to put it away in storage actually, but I've got a gun rack right there, a rifle rack that my dad made. And although I don't have any guns of any kind at the moment, I'm keeping the rifle rack because my dad made it, and so it's sentimental. But my family's definitely the exception. Most people don't have guns. Like I was talking, because as a private investigator, I used to have guns. I don't have guns now that I have a child in the house because I would never. Although, as I said, I grew up with guns. But anyway, I was talking to a friend that I had before I met my husband, a romantic interlude with or something. Anyway, and I talked to him recently about guns or something, and he goes, "Wait a minute," and he said, "When we were going out, you were armed?" And I went, "Oh, yeah." So he goes, "What if we'd had a fight?" And I went, "This is what he thinks." And I'm like, "So? Like, what? You think I'm going to shoot you?" And that's something people think. It wouldn't even occur to me to do that. Anyway, I don't know.
What I can say of the...
I'll probably teach.
I've got people in Facebook, and they obviously believe people have the right to firearms. I know a couple of them. One woman in particular talked about how, you know, her and her husband's a hunter, and they used to have they had a little, you know, rack or something like you said. Now, however, they're smart. They have a gun vault. You can't get in that gun vault. You know, you got to have a combination and whatever. And that's, I will have to say, many more Americans who do believe in having weapons and are hunters, they've got the gun vault. So.
Oh no, you have to hear now. I mean, I'm talking about the 1980s when they were in the rack. No, you have to have a vault now. Yeah, since the 90s, you've had to have a vault. But my dad died in '89, and it was mostly his guns and that. So, but my mum shot too. Mm. Mm.
I had a friend. Now, Connecticut, he lived in the rural area of Connecticut. And he said that as a teenager, they all walked around with rifles in the woods, shooting at, I don't know, squirrels or whatever. Didn't think anything of it. But again, that was just part of the culture. And again, now, if that's why I can understand. I can understand localizing gun control. For instance, Alaska. In Alaska, you can wind up, I don't know, with a grizzly bear walking in town. I'm exaggerating. But I can understand why in Alaska, yes, you got to walk around with a firearm in Alaska. That's just smart. But that's Alaska. You know, in most other parts of the United States, certainly the big cities, you can't have people walking around with firearms in big cities. That makes no sense. That's very dangerous.
Yeah, that's scary. I mean, wasn't it in Walmart? Some toddler pulled the gun out of his mum's purse, thought it was a toy, and shot his mother.
There was a case
not that long ago, a few months.
where a guy bought a firearm at a registered dealer, walked out of the house, their child got it, and killed himself with a gun this guy had just purchased. So,
yeah.
I don't know. All right. I'm out of subjects. Anything you want to talk about?
I should probably. No, I've got a sleeping baby here. I should probably go and do some things while she's asleep. Take advantage of not having her at my heels.
Okay. We will end the
I'll
hangout.
see you next week.
See you next week, and hopefully Justin can join us.